Hi, Krystina. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Doing well. It's so fun to sit down for a virtual coffee with you today. Looks like you have a bright and shiny day down
Yeah.
in Arizona where you're based.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm actually in LA right now.
Oh, you're in LA right now. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's also nice and sunny though. It's nice.
Perfect, perfect. Well, we thought we would sit down and we realized when we met on a summit that we had a lot in common and that you just have so much beautiful experience and kind of an innovative and big picture way of looking at this journey of motherhood and fertility and the doula work that you do. And I know that you have so much to offer women in terms of being able to be empowered around this journey. So I wanted to make sure that we have time to chat about this, and so that you can share all this beautiful wisdom with the people who need to hear this from you. And so I thought I would introduce you just briefly, but I want you to describe what it is you do. So you are a fertility and birth coach, and I understand you do most of your coaching and work through online media, so you can work with women no matter where they are in the world.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into this work and what's inspiring you, and what was your story and your experience so far.
Okay, I love to share. Thank you for having me. And I just have to say, these are all my favorite topics. So I'm so excited to talk about it. So really, it's been this whole evolution. And to get to where I'm at now, it was totally unexpected. So really, it started back when I was married, and it's like I was kind of like checking off boxes, like this is how my life is supposed to go. And now I want to have a baby. And so there were a few things that happened in there that I didn't think were playing a role in me getting here, but they did. Like I wanted to get pregnant, and it took me about 6 or 7 months. And I remember somewhere in there, I went to my OB for my normal yearly checkup, and I told her, like, I think something's wrong. It's been like 4 months and I haven't gotten pregnant. And I remember she laughed, like she literally laughed and was like, honey, we wouldn't even think anything was wrong with you until it was at least a year. And I was kind of like, but I really feel like there's something wrong. I just remember I was so worried. I had this like worry because I wanted it so bad that it wouldn't happen, really is like what was going on. So then I ended up getting pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage. And so I went through like the emotions of that. And then I got pregnant again a few months later. So that was kind of part of getting there, which I wouldn't have obviously known this would lead to me doing work in it one day. So then I had this amazing pregnancy. And what I can see now is that worry was still there. Like every time I went to the doctor, I thought they were going to tell me something was wrong. I just had this, like my mind was so in what could possibly be wrong.
Right.
And I had this overwhelming urgency to heal myself. Like I knew I had experienced sexual trauma as a child. I had PTSD at one point from finding my brother after he had died. And I knew I had all this stuff. And all of a sudden I was like, now's the time that I have to heal myself because I don't want to pass this on to my child. So that is really where a lot of it came from, because I knew I needed to do something and I really didn't know how. So I actually didn't do the complete healing there because I didn't know what to do. I thought, like, I'll think about it, I'll read some books, and so there was that part. But then when it came to birth, I started preparing. Excuse me, let me take a sip real quick. Yeah. So for my birth, I started reading and researching, and I was shocked to find out the facts about birth and how birth goes in hospitals, and just to see that everything my friends and my mom, any birth experience I'd ever been exposed to was like the normal thing to do is go to the hospital right away and get an epidural right away, like don't feel any pain. And when I started researching, because I wanted to know what was happening with my body and learning how it is actually designed to work and what actually happens, that an epidural numbs the muscles that are giving birth. It opened up this whole huge thing for me. And to kind of wrap all of that up, I ended up majorly preparing. I'm a maximalist when it comes to preparation. And I just had the most amazing birth. I was in labor for 4 hours. And when he was out, I had the most euphoric high I've ever experienced. And so I basically left there like knowing that women needed to know that this is possible, that birth could be like this, because I had never heard birth described as what I just experienced, which was amazing.
That is so amazing. So tell me what do you think enabled you to graduate out of the experiences that you'd heard about and read about, and that are fairly not the norm? I guess it's the norm, and it's not normal per se actually, but it's a conventional way, especially in the US, if I understand some of the statistics around how birth is usually done in a conventional hospital. So what allowed you to have that completely different experience, and one that you hadn't really heard of before, that you didn't even know was possible?
That's a great question. I really chalk it up to two things. One was the preparation I did. I did just completely saturate myself with information and things to do to prepare my body. And thinking back, the biggest things that stand out to me that I did, I mean, it was all mindset. It was all mindset and trusting my body. So I would imagine the contractions moving the baby down, and I would relax my whole body thinking, okay, if I let them do their job, then my body is going to do it rather than resist it. And I kept thinking in my head, I'm strong and capable. I'm strong and capable. Those are my two words.
Right.
And really, it was actually just letting it happen, where I went into it still thinking, because of everything I'd heard, I went into it still thinking this probably won't actually even work, but I'm at least going to try it because it seems like there's apparently nothing you can do. And really, I just saw it actually worked. I actually was able to let my body do its job and to trust it. I let my body take over. I had to let my mind get out of the way, and my body knew exactly what to do.
Wow, amazing. Did you feel a moment of vulnerability or fear in that surrender to, particularly given for women who have had a history of trauma, there can be sort of difficulty around trust in your body or trust in your strength or having that courage. Was there a moment where you had to have a talk with yourself? Was that a body sensation? Did it just flow?
I think that I was really lucky and blessed. And actually, I didn't even say the second thing, which I feel like I really was just blessed and watched over, because I think that if it was really up to me, only me, I don't know that it would have gone that way. I probably would have sabotaged it somehow. So I didn't have that experience then. I was so just in the moment that actually never came up, and that isn't a trigger that I personally have. So I have worked with clients where that's a very prominent thing. And now in the work I do, we do a lot with body work. I mean, it's so amazing to actually connect with your body, and sometimes with women. And I did have to do this. I didn't do it till later. I had to literally re-enter my body, because I know when I was younger and experienced sexual abuse, I literally would leave my body. It's like I was watching myself. And I know a lot of women relate to that in any sort of instance. Like, we just don't even know. We kind of almost watch ourselves from the outside. Even if it's being concerned about what people think about us, it could be super simple. And re-entering your body is just the most amazing thing, because then you can feel the sensations. You can actually know what is going on.
Right. So it restores a sense of control and peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I didn't have that trigger. And in the moment, it really was so obvious that my body knew what it was doing. And the one moment I had that I did feel vulnerable was when I started to move into transition, and I did feel the contractions get a lot more intense. There was this moment, and actually I was at my house and we were planning to go to the hospital because my then husband, he was too scared. For safety reasons, he wanted to have it at the hospital.
Okay.
That was the most vulnerable moment, was when I could feel that something was happening and I didn't feel, and I couldn't let it happen there, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you're preparing for that physical transition to the hospital, and you had to almost hold back on something that.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that was almost harder, was resisting it. Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah.
Then, following your birth experience, did you have a process that you went through when you decided to go into birth-related work?
Yeah, I did. So it started out very slowly. And to be honest, I was not very aware of what was actually happening then. I still had a lot of healing to take place, and that didn't happen until I was going through my divorce, and I had to really look at what is really going on with me internally and all of that. So I started very slowly taking classes to be a doula, and the basically like what ended up happening is as I started doing my own personal development work and healing work, it kind of like kept moving hand in hand. Like I would do another training, and then I would do my own work, and then I'd attend a birth and I'd discover something new, and all of that just kind of kept going. So very much part of my journey and my work is my own work. You know, and even now as a coach, I'm committed to growing myself every single day so that I hold that space for my clients.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So when women approach you to do some work together, what are the things that they are struggling with the most? What are they asking for some help around?
So there are a few things that always seem to stand out. And just so you know now, a lot of the time I start working with women before they even are trying to get pregnant, since I have found that the things that are that, like if a woman comes to me during her pregnancy, it's usually actually the same thing as the woman who's coming to me for fertility, and then the woman who's coming to me for like earlier in her journey. So
Your preconception.
yeah, so basically if a woman starts working on it earlier, she'll have healed that, and then she'll have a different experience by the time she's pregnant. So a lot of the time, like we do a whole life audit, everything that is going on, because sometimes it's hard to see, it's not staring you in the face, but they just know something's off. So usually they're feeling like overwhelmed and unfulfilled in some area of their life. They know that they are self-sabotaging, they have limiting beliefs that are holding them back.
Yeah.
And usually there's something from the past that hasn't been healed or addressed. And usually they know exactly what it is. But usually the process starts with just wanting something that they can't have, whether it's getting pregnant or breaking through a limit in their business or something like that. And so then it's just a whole discovery of what it really is that is going on that would empower them in this step in their life.
Yeah, very cool. So what would be kind of, if a woman is dealing with right now sense that she's unable to get pregnant, trying for some time, and is seeing perhaps even diagnoses coming through that are sort of rationales for some of the obstacles, or perhaps even it's what we call unexplained infertility, and it's just kind of like, well, you want to do IVF or not? Do you want to do IUI? And you're kind of then on the medical side, you know, your choices seem to be fairly limited, and your path seems to be, well, you're going to try IUI 3 times, and then we're going to do IVF. And it's kind of like, well, she's looking for something more, and she feels like there's probably something going on, but she's not quite in touch with it, or maybe she is. What would be the first couple of things that you would work on or suggest to her to help her start moving in a different direction, or at least complement perhaps a medical treatment plan?
Yeah, I love that question. And I know that when a woman's at that place, it's always a very vulnerable time. Usually she's starting to just think something's wrong with her. And so the very first thing is to get her to a place where she can see that this is all part of the process. And I, of course, come from a very spiritual place that life is all a journey. So everything that's placed before us, it's a lesson to get to the next thing. So I help her to see, like, what is the lesson here to learn, and make sure that she knows nothing is wrong with her. So the first thing I actually do is undo everything else. So there's a lot of social programming that can come in. Again, also in the US, it's very quick to jump to the medical route for fertility as well. So just to have her know nothing is wrong, like this is all part of the process. And if she has had a diagnosis, I actually tell my clients to literally forget that. Like, we are putting that out of the equation, because then her mind will start to tell her body that something's wrong. So if she's living in something's wrong with me, my body's not working, that's what she's going to keep getting. So I teach her, because literally, like, change happens in an instant. And I truly believe that our minds have dominion over our bodies. So if we start to believe something, I believe that on a cellular level, our bodies will start to reconfigure. And so the sooner she can start to be looking at what she really does want and believing it's possible, all new things open up. So that's the first place that I always start with.
Start with undoing.
Yes, undoing.
Or whatever you want to call it. There's been inputs artificially put on her.
Yes.
That we're going to just take the truth or the heaviness away from them completely. Just take them off.
Yeah, and also sometimes that also includes what other people think she should do. Sometimes it's like she feels like she's kind of in this bubble, like she has maybe her mom who thinks this, or her girlfriend who did it this way, and the media saying this, and it's like she's just kind of like, I don't know, what do I really do? I teach her to disconnect from that and then move into her own power, so that, because she really has the answers. So moving into connecting her with her intuition and her body, a place that she can trust herself.
You're reminding me of some writing by Florence Scovel-Shinn, who talks about the subconscious mind as being power without direction.
Nice.
So, and how we can use our own consciousness to program the direction for that power. And like you were saying, how, that power from the mind to start change at a cellular level. Absolutely. And we might think that we're working in the realm of metaphysical or miracle. And there's a clearly physiological response to this. Like Bruce Lipton talks about the biology of belief, and just how powerful our beliefs are in programming the outcomes that we're going to see in our bodies. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, to me, I see that it has to start there. Because if you try to start without that, you're still living in the world of it may work or it might not work.
Yeah.
You're going to keep getting that.
Yeah.
So that's the most beautiful thing, I think, to really step. So I say that in fertility, I work in the world of possibility. Like what doesn't work, that's going to go away. Because even if we're just going to pretend, like if you think it's crazy and there's no way it's going to work, let's just pretend for 6 months and see what happens. And miracles can happen within that time.
I love it. Okay, so when you're working with a woman and you're introducing this experience that she's going to have working with you around releasing the diagnoses and the media and what her mother-in-law or her husband or her partner or her friend has done or wants, or is their preferred sort of approach, and you're letting her start to tap into her intuition about her next step, how do you help her first capture that intuitive sense that's authentic for her?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that developing and trusting your intuition is a continual process. I'm still learning more and more about it. I think that as women, we'll continue learning our whole lives. And the initial thing that I always have them do is starting kind of in baby steps. I have them start to check in with themselves. I do usually a body practice where I help them to drop from their mind, like literally imagining your focus being in your mind to your focus being in your heart, and then making the tiniest decisions throughout your day with your intuition. Like even, what am I going to eat for breakfast today? Looking at your food, like what feels right for me? and then picking like the strawberries or whatever it is. And then doing that again when getting dressed. Okay, what do I want to wear today? And just starting with those tiny things will start to build, because then you'll start to see like, wow, that feels really good. Like I feel way more aligned with myself just by choosing my clothing for today based from here.
Yeah.
So that's how I start.
I love that. What a feminine way to approach what we would consider, not that important decisions, but I love that concept of following what feels good and training the neurology to create a foundation of, I'm going to pick what feels good because it feels good.
Yeah.
Rather than living in shoulds or, that awful world of shoulds that makes us feel restrained and kind of anxious and like we're never really measuring up.
Yeah, and I think something just popped into my head that I'd love to say, because a lot of what comes up here is it's learning to operate from the heart or intuition or higher self, however you want to look at it. It's learning to operate in that space and moving out of the logical, rational mind, which is what we are so programmed to use throughout our whole life. So that can be hard.
Yes.
It's so different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it starts to feel good. Once you see that feels good, it starts to become exciting and easy.
Yeah. It's kind of like building how Niagara Falls, it's just going to definitely flow over that edge.
Yeah.
A lot of power. If you start digging a canal, though, a little bit upstream, and you reinforce it and you do some work, it's going to feel like hard work, but eventually there's going to be great flow through that space too, and we're going to make a whole new waterfall, and it'll be a new place by default someday soon.
Yeah.
And we can rebuild new neural pathways by getting into these practices, which you're coaching women on how to do. That's super beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up neural pathways too. Sometimes because we need to still satisfy our logical, rational mind, it helps to know that these things do actually reprogram our brains.
Yeah.
And so sometimes if you feel skeptical about the stuff we're talking about and it seems woo-woo, there's actually backing that, it programs our brains. Like that's legit scientific stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure within 10 to 20 years, the way that the brain works is going to become much more central to medicine and our expectations of how we treat everything. For right now, that's a good way to overcome the sense of woo-woo. For those who need to. I'm totally comfortable living in that space, at least when I keep one toe in the science. And I just love that we can now see science starting to explain some of these, what we might call spiritual or metaphysical experiences or phenomena or healing or, spontaneous, physiological changes, spontaneous pregnancy in women who, have been diagnosed infertile and they've been trying for years and they had multiple failed IVFs and there's male factor. We know that there's couples who've completely had healthy babies following those things. So there is certainly reason to live with that possibility that you introduce into their lives. So what would be a couple of tips that you would have for women who are just starting out on this journey of maybe there's something, and maybe there's another way that I could approach my journey in with fertility or with being prepared for a pregnancy? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I'd say if you're doing this at home and you feel this call to look at this approach, I would start with doing a self-evaluation. So I am a huge believer in journaling because it's a way that you can get thoughts out and you can actually discover a lot. So there's a few exercises that I think are great to start with. And one is actually a forgiveness exercise. You go through and write down anything, any person, any experience that you need to forgive or that you can feel you're holding a grudge or still exists within your energetic field. Write it down And then and yourself. It's very important to include yourself and your body in that. Anything that you need to let go of. You know, when I've done it, I've done like myself for making that decision, or my body for not working the way I wanted it to. And then myself for being mad at my body for it not working. You can really get down and down. So you want to do at least 30 things, because you want to make sure you're doing an exhaustive list. And again, you can do this over and over. And I don't know that I know how to say it, but the whole Hawaiian thing, the Ho'oponopono, is that how you say it?
Oh, yes. Yes. I just experienced that for the first time a few months back.
Oh, cool. So my approach to it is to go through every single thing and say, I forgive you. And in that, you're imagining that thing that you are letting it go, giving it back. And then the next one is, I'm sorry. And with that, I have a different approach than what a lot of people initially think, is that I'm sorry that I made this into such a big thing, that I was holding on to this. And then I thank you. Thank you for the lesson. You always want to look at what was the actual lesson that you got there. And I love you. And that so if you go through every single one, you'll feel lighter, and you may just all of a sudden have new thoughts pop in your head. Like, it'll actually clear up a lot of like junk that could be blocking you. So that's a great place to start.
Yeah. What a beautiful practical exercise too. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I'd love to share at least one more if you want.
Please. Yes. Thank you.
So another thing that you can do is actually imagine going into your body. So moving your focus again, like I always start down from my mind to my heart, and then down more, and I move into my womb and my ovaries. And you can put your hands on your body if it helps to bring awareness there. Just imagine your focus going into your feminine centers, and you can actually just ask it, like talk to your body like it can talk back to you, and ask a question like, what is really going on here? Like, what do I need to know? What message are you trying to tell me? And just be still and be quiet. And you may have an answer come in a form of a feeling, a thought may cross through your head. You may just know exactly. And so just be open to whatever answer you get, because it might not make sense right away. But if you hold the intention that you will now hear that message and do something about it, the way will show itself to you. It always will. And if you need support in that, I am available. There are a lot of people who are available to really go into that. And sometimes you'll get your answer right there.
Amazing. Well, I hope that if you're listening to our recording that you give those exercises a chance, or maybe that you were even following along with Krystina. Krystina, how can people reach out to you and connect with you if they'd like to learn more, or if they have questions about what you've shared today and want to go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, well, you can find me on a few different platforms. And right now, a good place to find me is either on Facebook or Instagram. So just by Krystina Sloan. And you can always email me. So I'll give you my email, or you have my email, but I'll give you one that we can make sure everybody can have. And so there's a lot of different ways you can reach me. You can subscribe to my email list. So if you want that, just send me an email. I'll make sure that that happens. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm always posting things that are all it's all intertwined with this. So it's all based in femininity and consciousness and self-awareness, self-love. So I'd love for any of you who would like to come see what it's kind of my creative outlet. It's my area where I get to just give and give value. So
thank you so much. That's really, really amazing. And I feel so blessed just by having this conversation with you today. I love those practical exercises and your feminine and conscious approach to women, and helping them stand in their power and release what's no longer serving, so that they can have that blessed life that they deserve and are designed for. Thank you so much, Krystina. I look forward to chatting with you again in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. I also feel so light and free and excited just for all the possibility out there after having this conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Love it. Love it. Pleasure. Okay, bye for now, Krystina. Bye.